We asked which PS5 games you thought had the best graphics and, well, you answered, so here are your picks. Hello everyone, Aaron here from Push Square, and yes, we asked you on both our community page on the YouTube channel and over on pushsquare.com which PS5 games you think have the best graphics. We then took every single mention of those games, compiled them into a spreadsheet to make up our own definitive list of the top 20 games. No PS5 upgrades or remasters here because I didn't want to hear the whole "these are all just PS4 games" comments, so no Ghost of Tsushima or Death Stranding director's cuts. Oh, and before we get into it, I'd really appreciate it if you subscribe to the channel for more PlayStation video content just like this. So without further ado, here are the top 20 PS5 games with the best graphics according to the readers and watchers of Push Square. We're starting out with a somewhat controversial pick here. Black Myth: Wukong really is the kind of game that stretches the potential of the PS5. It's a Soulsy action RPG where you play a monkey warrior taking on all sorts of Chinese mythological creatures. Despite its whimsical out there premise, it dons a fairly realistic graphical style, the kinds where you can pick out each of the hairs on the monkey's head. Now, there were some complaints about the image quality of Black Myth on console, although it should be noted that the PS5 Pro version alleviates some of those issues. But regardless of which version you are playing, I think the boss designs and their animation, mixed in with the graphical effects, make this a particularly impressive looking game. There's a boss later on with a dragon. I don't want to spoil it here. It blew me away. I wasn't sure if we'd get some Lords of the Fallen truthers out there, so I was really glad to see it get a call out. This sequel reboot is one of the first PS5 games rocking Unreal Engine 5 to an actual decent effect. Well, at least it does now that it's had a couple of years of updates. Lords of the Fallen's world is one drenched in depressing beauty, with ruined castles, spooky forests, and rain-slicked mountainsides. There's a fantastic sense of atmosphere in each of its areas. What makes it even more special though, especially from a graphical perspective, is that it has this double world feature, where the world of the living and the world of the dead simultaneously coexist. Using your umbral lamp, you can peer into the world of the dead or even entirely transport yourself there, which I just think is so cool. Now that performance has been smoothed out on this one, I think it's an absolute beauty. A 2025 biggie here, Clair Obscur Expedition 33 is one of those games that rides the line of top tier graphics melded with fantastic art direction. The world of Clair Obscur is twisted and beautiful and truly a sight to behold, and you'll quite regularly stop in awe of some of its vistas. It's an interesting one that at times looks really realistic and then at times goes so weird and wonderful, and seeing the paintress and the glowing 33 steadily get a little bit closer as you progress through the campaign is a great touch. I personally don't think you'll see a game with as inventive a world design as this one. Giant Squid, the developer of games like Abzu and Journey, only really make beautiful games, so it's not too much of a surprise that their latest venture, Sword of the Sea, gets a mention here. In this game, you'll be surfing the sands and the seas with a hoverboard-like sword, spreading water and aquatic life across a mysterious desert. This is certainly more in the art direction side of things, with vibrant colours and dolphins and whales swimming all around you. A nice visual detail that I really like is being able to see structures and sea life exist underneath the water and eventually rising and jumping above it. I think it's a really cool 3D effect, and the way that the vibrant blue water spreads across the desert when you reach a new area is endlessly fascinating. This one is a sight to behold. Now, truth be told, I was not expecting Returnal to get a shout out in this list, and I'm very glad that it has. From a glance, this game has got this solid H.R. Geiger inspired alien planet in the form of Atropos, with looming alien statues ominously watching. There's this fantastic atmosphere to the game that I just don't think is spoken about enough, with dark, shady areas and low hanging mist. However, what likely takes it to the next level is when the game adds pops of colour through combat. This is a bullet hell roguelike where you will be dashing and dodging beams and bolts that take on luminous colours that majestically light up in contrast against its moodier backdrop aesthetic. What follows is kaleidoscopic mayhem that looks unreal on an HDR display. Say what you will about the Callisto Protocol, a Dead Space-like from the guy that originally made Dead Space, but there is no denying that this is a grotesquely beautiful game. Set on Jupiter's moon of Callisto, a literal moon prison, you play as Jacob, who then must survive some kind of outbreak that turns people into horrific zombie-like creatures. This one is obsessed with the finer details, like the beads of sweat running down Jacob's face, or the brilliant flashing lights. I know I just mentioned Returnal for this, but Callisto absolutely sings in HDR, and for the PS5 Pro users out there, it even has an 8K version to try out. Mixing its hard steel interiors and bubbling mucousy flesh spreading across the prison, it's a delight for fans of that gnarly kind of sci-fi horror. Here we have our first remake in the form of The Last of Us Part 1. A needed remake? No, probably not, but it sure is a looker. Now I think there are some instances where the remake loses some of that PS3 hazy charm, but at the same time the way that the cutscenes are enhanced is truly superb. The performance capture is just night and day compared to previous versions, and it adds a whole other layer to these already emotionally charged scenes. You can obsess over all the little details of this melancholic post-apocalypse, which I still think captures locations and times of day or even seasons with the kind of finesse that only Naughty Dog can. As someone that played through the original game about 8 or so times before getting to this one, playing the remake is such a delight. If you are wondering why I included this one here after saying about the no PS4 games, The Last of Us Part 1 is a PS5 exclusive remake built from the ground up for this new generation of consoles, so that's why it's here. Something a little bit different, we now have Gran Turismo 7, the meticulous driving simulator from Polyphony Digital. Now I don't think this one has those grab you by the scruff of your neck screaming "we've got good graphics" type of good graphics, but this one is quietly brilliant, and a lot of people clearly think the same, with it getting a mention here. With a dense collection of vehicles, Gran Turismo 7 knows how to make its cars look cool, and its roads the kind that you just love to cruise across. Something I saw a lot of people mention is the game's ability to capture a time of day and its transition to a later time of day or earlier time of day with its skylines and environments. It's something I don't think I had appreciated enough until now. A former Xbox exclusive landing its way on this list is a surprise, but man, Hellblade 2 sure is deserving. This is a super cinematic experience, especially with its letterbox aspect ratio, but holy, this game looks almost real at points. It's a very slow-paced game at times, but it manages to capture its raw, rural essence of its Icelandic setting, complete with the most realistic-looking rocks you have ever seen, and some great use of lighting. I know it's not the deepest gameplay experience, but I think through its visuals, some of its sword fights can be properly immersive thanks to it. I'm a super visual person, so a game like this, it just does it for me. Now if you know me, then you know I love a bit of Avatar. I just adore the James Cameron movies, and I was always due to love Ubisoft's Frontiers of Pandora to some degree. But man, Massive Entertainment did such a great job bringing this moon planet to life. With lush and dense forests, every area of this game could easily be a screensaver. I think for me, it's the way that it captures that living atmosphere, which admittedly means things like the sound design also go a long way to achieving what was achieved here. But even still, the first time you emerge from that tunnel into the forest, that is some impressive stuff. It properly takes your breath away and continues to do so as you reach the open plains or the misty forests in the late game area. Cracking the top 10, we have Assassin's Creed Shadows, which I did not think we'd hear a word about, to be honest, but I'm glad to know that there are some appreciators out there for Ubisoft's recreation of feudal Japan. The AC games have always been nice looking games, and a little insider info here, Valhalla did get a mention, just not quite enough to make this list, but there's no denying that Shadows was a technical step up. For me, I don't think it was necessarily the graphical fidelity so much as it was the liveliness of the Japanese countryside. Sort of like Avatar, vegetation rustles and sways with the wind, and the varying seasons and weathers make it all feel so much more dynamic and alive. I personally think that's why people love the look of this game so much. Speaking of worlds brought to life, there are a few that do it as well as Cyberpunk 2077. The PS5 version of this game I think looks fantastic, but it's easily all the finite, lore-filling details that CD Projekt Red manages to stuff into any given area, and then how it drenches it all in vibrant neon colours. You know a developer has created a gorgeous world when people are happy to simply exist in it and explore, not necessarily engaging with its content. We had one commenter specifically mention how they love to just walk through Japantown when it's raining. I mean, that's what it's all about, man. Bit of a surprise to see this one so high, but I do think Astro Bot is just a top tier visual experience. It has a very Mario-like visual vibrancy that gives it a very fun vibe, but there is a lot of technical proficiency stuffed into Team Asobi's masterpiece of a platformer. Switching out various themes from space to jungles to deserts to icy plains, Astro Bot does it all without a visual hiccup in sight. And I remember actually being very impressed by the physics. We all know that bit with the falling gems. We spun around like crazy in that bit for sure. And although it has a sort of cartoony aesthetic, there are the little details like the glint of light on Astro's visor or some of these more densely detailed levels, and you just can't help but smile at them. Astro Bot is a happy little graphical package. Spider-Man Remastered looks great on the PS5, but I think the upgrade with Spider-Man 2 is a little bit better than most people realise. Density is the name of the game here, with the lighting in particular really bringing New York to life. What's more impressive is that it amps the visual clarity whilst also boosting the speed of which you see it as you swing and glide through its streets. What I've always appreciated the most about the Spider-Man games, and especially with 2, is that you can slow it right down and just walk the streets and it still looks just as good. It would have been so easy for Insomniac to put a little less detail into the areas we would presumably spend less time in, but nah, it's all there. Name a chillier looking game than God of War Ragnarok. Santa Monica's masterpiece of a sequel manages to capture the very essence of the Nine Realms with brilliant environmental effects. Looking at the icy snow wisp across the frozen lake in Midgard, or the jellyfish-laden skyline of Alfheim, or even take in the sun-bleached haze of Jotunheim, it all serves to create a believable world. And with the dense lore of its Norse inspirations, it means that the worlds of Ragnarok aren't just visual dressing, they feel real and important. I think there's also a lot of cool lighting stuff going on in Ragnarok, which gives each of its 9 realms a distinctive feel. It's very cool stuff. Now this is a personal favourite of mine. Alan Wake 2 is a moody and mysterious offering, and yeah, some people do have some complaints about the actual resolution, but while this gives it a bit of a softer edge, I don't know, I think it works for this game, and it's still, there's no denying, it looks phenomenal. I mean, I remember so vividly how impressed I was when I first explored the New York dark place with its neon tints and graffiti-stricken walls. Lighting and colour are certainly some of the biggest strengths of this game, knowing exactly which one to pick to emphasise the game's weirdness and its horror elements. I've spoken about atmosphere a couple of times in this video, but this one for me takes the cake. Even just those woodland settings, I mean, you can practically breathe in and smell that damp woodland air. In the number 4 spot, we have a game that kicked off the PS5 generation. Demon's Souls is a proper showcase of what's possible with the PS5 hardware, utilising great sound design, haptic feedback, and most importantly for this list, insane graphical fidelity. I always say you feel the weight and history through the castle walls of its opening area, and even 5 years on, I still stand by it. However, it's not just the way it brings the environments to life, but also the enemies and their various particle effects. Fire, magical projectiles, and more all just look phenomenal and go a long way to selling a horrifically dire, yet somehow beautiful world. Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart is a showcase of what happens when you blend a strong art direction with graphical power. This platforming sequel somehow looks like an actual Pixar movie with smooth animations and colourful environments, but on the same count, you can see the individual hairs upon Ratchet's head or the metallic sheen on Clank. Not to mention, when bullets and bolts start flying, the particles are going crazy. It's got very manic and destructible levels, along with uniquely animated enemies, smooth movements from Ratchet, and a collection of visually interesting weapons. It's a unique case of a lot of things being done to their best ability and melding together to create what is probably the most succinctly put together visual package on the PS5. I'm glad to see it get its flowers still. Now this one was very, very close to taking the top spot, but narrowly missing out. We have Death Stranding 2 on the beach. Now if you thought the first game looked great, which it totally did, then you aren't quite ready for Death Stranding 2. The environments which you'll be trekking across are stupendously detailed, with some of the most insane draw distances that you will see this generation. I mean, look at this mountain pass. I just couldn't believe what I was looking at when I first played through this bit. However, cinematic cutscenes are also way better in this game, with character models and performance capture looking lifelike in some scenes. What's better is when Death Stranding 2 gets into those more out there areas and designs, it'll continually have you stopping in your tracks, not quite believing what you're looking at. This is a triumph in graphical power. But taking the number 1 spot, we have Horizon Forbidden West, which people just can't get enough of. Now I do think from a fidelity perspective, Death Stranding 2 is a little bit better. It is based on an upgraded version of the same Decima engine after all. But I think Horizon taking the top spot is indicative of the importance of raw graphical power and art direction working together. Horizon's post-apocalyptic world is filled with robotic dinosaurs, crumbling ruins, and beautifully lush overgrown environments. I think it has an immediately recognisable and stronger visual identity, which helps coalesce visuals and art direction together, and man, Forbidden West truly is spectacular looking. The pops of blue in the coast, the greenest greens you've ever seen, and some brilliant sci-fi sprinkling. It's a delight to behold, and the number 1 best graphics on PS5 according to the readers and viewers of Push Square. So there we have it, 20 of the best PS5 graphics currently available according to you lovely people. Let me know which you agree with or some that you felt should have made the cut down in the comments below, and while you're there, remember to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more PlayStation video content just like this. Anyway, thank you so much for sticking around, and until next time, I've been Aaron, and this has been Push Square.